Hey, most of you guys will be catching the replay of this. We're going to do another weekly Q&A. I told you before, these are going to end up being at weird times because um, babies are real in my world. So just a couple quick announcements. I don't know if you guys saw the book is out. I had to go through a pretty lengthy approval process with Amazon, especially for the Audible version. So when that's out, I'll let you guys know. But the other versions, I will be sending out most of those, hopefully all of them today. But it depends on if Facebook lets me respond to all the people. Usually after you get like 50 or 100 messages, it doesn't let you respond to them all. So if you don't get it today, I promise I will get it to you soon. Read it because it's awesome. It'll change your life. It's a very different way of looking at this whole agency business. Um, as well, a couple of people have joined the offer we have out right now in the group, which is really amazing. I'm stoked to have you guys. Honestly, it's going to be so life changing, especially for those of you. By the way, if you have like only one way of getting clients right now, whether that's like a Facebook ad or a webinar, or a Google ad, or whether you're doing that in person, for real, I've seen this happen so many times because I've been doing this since 2007. Is all it takes is one little shift in the market and you're completely under. I actually remember an SEO agency doing 1 million a year or 1 million a month. They were they had conquered the Las Vegas limo scene and they were selling all the leads to all the limo companies. And then one day, Google update, out of business. That was their only way of doing it. So we want to get you away from having one way that works for you and having like an offer that works anywhere with people that you can use instantly. So you can send a couple messages on LinkedIn or you can run a couple of paid ads. It doesn't really matter. It works. If it works on people, it'll work anywhere. And then, secondly, in addition to just if you're really caught up in one way of doing things, if you're finding it takes you longer than a few days to get a client result, that should be setting off alarm bells that your agency actually isn't set up the right way. So, like, I'm not saying not to do SEO or not to do Facebook ads for people, but usually those things don't work in the first few hours or the first few days. In fact, they usually have like a kind of like long period of time before that. You're going to be setting yourself up in your agency for a whole lot of trouble if you do that, if it takes you a long time to get results, because clients aren't that patient, especially when cash flow is tight in Corona, to just keep paying out and not seeing any response. So if you're in either of those situations, and as well, we're going to be talking about getting assets so clients actually pay you twice. And the second payment, the asset payment, which is how rich people get rich, stays with you long after the client leaves. So typical agencies, a client's gone after like 3 months. But when you do it the asset way, that asset is still going to pay you for the next 5, 10, 20 years. So if you're interested in that, check that out. Enough shameless plugging. Let's get to the questions. So Alex says, which is better to create a one-page website or a five-page website for SEO ranking? Generally, Alex, this is a two-part answer. One, more is better. Google likes sites that aren't just like quick hit one little pages. They like sites that are in this for the long haul and keep adding to their users. So the answer is always going to be more. My question to you is though, why are you doing SEO? Because if you're trying to get in front of people so that you can eventually have some conversations and hopefully pick up some clients, then I would tell you there's a way easier way to do that. So I would say just check out the training that's pinned as the announcement in this group because you can be having conversations with business owners in like 5 minutes. So don't work so hard. Having said that, though, I'm not discourage you from doing SEO if that works for you. I did SEO for many years until I got sick of Google just being fucking crazy every night of the week. I actually compare Google to like a pregnant chick that wants ice cream at 3 in the morning. That seems pretty accurate to me. So, Mehdi asks, do you also do website creation and design? That's actually a really good question, Mehdi. I don't personally. We don't do that at our agency. I'm just really in like kind of the results business now. I do a little bit of consulting as well for people that I just really love to hang out with. But I would tell you if you don't, then those are the people you need to talk to. Now everybody's talking about like Facebook ads and all these things. Um, there's another person in the group, David, doing this same strategy. I built my agency, my first 100 clients, I got entirely through white labeling, as it's called, which means I went to web designers and I said, hey, do you do SEO? And they said, no. And I said, if I give you a really good price and I make you look really good, would you offer this to your clients? And of course they did. And they went and sold the clients for me. So if you like really hate talking to clients and selling, you can actually build an agency without ever making a sales call by having the web designers do it for you. So that's how we got all of our SEO clients in our agency. I'm not saying you have to do that way, but just giving you guys a sense of possibility. This wasn't so much as a question, but just a really great post. Graves says, tired of talking to broke people. So if you guys you're getting on the phone with people and you're getting people to talk face to face and they're saying, I can't afford it or it's too much money, or if they're just like willing to pay, but it's really cheap, like a couple $100 a month, and you're getting people that are like penny pinching and kind of like desperate, look at like what you're doing for a messaging. So like, for example, I experienced this in the lawyer space and I didn't always know at the beginning I was doing it. So in the beginning, I would run a message that said like, do you need clients to keep the lights on this month? And I got people, right? Like there was a lot of people who reached out and most of them were like, could barely afford anything, were struggling to stay afloat, a couple of days away from bankruptcy and really, really stressed out. And they were actually kind of hard to help because they were very kind of like nervous and neurotic and almost like desperate. And I remember then later I discovered there's like a really high end lawyer, and I remember witnessing in an event I was at, there was a lawyer who spent $100,000 in front of me and didn't even think about it for 2 seconds. He went, "How much is it? Oh, 100 grand? Okay, yeah, go ahead." And that was it. That was the whole conversation. I was blown away that there were people in the higher end of the market that $100,000 wasn't even like, I need to think about it money. And I said I wanted to work more with those people. So if I ran an ad today that said something like, are you finding that your TV ads cost you more than $1,000 per client to acquire because you have so many competitors competing in the same space as you? Do you need a way to stand out? I know that I wouldn't get a lot of hand raisers, but the people that would raise their hand would be the really, really high end, really, really successful people. So this is just a call for you, is like, go look at your messaging and look at it with like naked eyes, like somebody brand new who knows nothing about you, and ask yourself like, what kind of person is going to raise their hand? Because if you're getting broke people on the phone, then you're fishing in the pond with broke people. Um, Yehuda, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Who here uses physical books as a lead magnet? Raise our hand. Um, yeah, I actually, that was one of the things, we had a whole funnel we did for offline businesses where we helped them create a funnel. If you guys are interested in doing something like this, I'll share the whole process with you. What we did is I found books work really, really well for brick and mortar businesses, especially like expertise brick and mortar. So, where they know something, accountants and lawyers and engineers and architects and anybody who like gets paid to more for how they're thinking and their strategy than their actual doing. Um, Lead magnets work really well. So what we used to do is there was a series of questions we would ask them, and they were really kind of straightforward, which is like, what are the mistakes you see people make? What should people know about this process? How long does it take? How much does it cost? And we would have a little interview with them and record it. And there's an amazing little website called rev.com, and for about $1 a minute, they will transcribe that recording, and then we would just take that transcription. Then I would have my virtual assistant format it and clean up the language a little bit, and then we would have a book, and they could give these out, and they cost like $1, $2, $3 to print, little miniature books, but it makes them look like real experts in their client eyes. And we found out when you do this, by the way, just so if you're doing this for the first time, about 1 in every 14 books comes back to the client. So if you give away 14 books, you'll get 1 paying client. 28 books, 2. It doesn't mean like it's exactly like that, but that's kind of standard if you do the book right. Ron asks, what is stopping you from getting 5 to 10 appointments per week? Ron was kind of asking everybody, but I want to chime in because if you're not at this situation where you're getting 5 to 10 appointments per week, firstly, you don't need 5 to 10 appointments a week. As long as you're like really targeted and focused and getting the right people and you're focused on retaining them, you actually don't need volume to make up for it. But having said that, if you're in a situation you're just not getting people to talk to, I would say 99 times out of 100 it's your offer. Like, and most people focus on all the wrong things, so they try and add funnels and complexity in all these things. And if you're getting stuck, it's usually because what you're offering is another me too that they can get anywhere else, and they don't see a reason to pay you. Especially now, when I first started this, it was like, ooh, you're a digital marketer, right? But now it's like, who the fuck is it, right? So you guys want to find ways to stand out from the noise. And when you do that with your offer, it gets really, really easy. So, real example, and I know I give a lot of these in the lawyer space, but it's just a space I know really, really well. I know motorcycle cases are worth a lot more. I have a friend doing Facebook ads for motorcycle cases, and they're passing his name around in Mastermind. He can't keep up. Everybody's hiring him. Now, there's a gazillion people who do Facebook ads, and probably thousands more who could do them for motorcycle cases, but he's the only one who's offering it right now. So he's getting all the phone calls. Um, Rishab, how to deal with these types of clients who want a vendor qualification process. There was also a picture with this question where he had, how long have you been in business? Basically, it's like a job interview. Honestly, it really depends. Um, if the client like that, if the contract is worth a lot of money and it's actually worth it, then I would go out of my way to go through that process. So I have a good friend, Isaac, who is really, really well known for teaching people Google AdWords. Got a course on Udemy with, like, I don't know, 160, 170, 180,000 people who've taken it. And he was telling me about this big government contract he was working on, and they have a process like that. And it's a real fucking pain in the ass. Um, but the thing about it is, like, it's like $100,000 per month contract. If you get it, it's pretty life changing for that kind of client. You put up with it. If it's just your average mom and pop shop, I wouldn't do that. I just wouldn't jump through those hoops personally. So I'm not telling you what to do, but if the client's going to be a pain in the ass, and I understand their need to vet and to, like, feel you out, but if it's just too much work, I would just skip it. And that's probably what they're depending on, by the way. Unless you really want them as a client, then go for it. Adrian says, I've got a savings plan client. There's no leads. Nobody's contacting. Nobody's scheduling. Does my client's offer suck? Probably. More than likely, yes. And usually I find if you're, since it sounds like he's brick and mortar, like 99 out of 100 brick and mortar basically run their ads, their websites, their landing pages like this. They say, company name, we do blank, blank, and blank, call us. And they might have some kind of slogan and tell you why they're better than the rest, might established 1892 and things like that. But in my experience, that's not an offer. What you do is not your offer. Like, saying we make sandwiches is not an offer. An offer is come get 2 Whoppers for $3.99 or whatever the hell. Like, fast food companies do this really, really good. They make a lot of offers. There's, like, if you drive by McDonald's, they'll have the arches, but right below it, there's almost always an offer. Come in for an ice cream, try it for 99 cents. We got the Mick deal, the Mick this, the Mick that. And so they're always endlessly making offers. So if you don't know where to start with that, I would suggest just trying. But the best way, usually, I found, to figure out what to offer is to ask your client, say, what kind of clients do you wish you had more of? And that'll tell you where you should, like, direction wise go, because they're usually just thinking about everybody. But if you focus on getting them the ones they really want, you're more likely to stay, and your offers will make more sense, and they'll be happier with you. And they don't always know they need that. Jog. Do other agencies outsource? Yes, it depends on how much, to be honest, like, of a control freak you are. I experimented with this for a lot of years, where I, basically arbitrage, as you call it, where you get a contract and then you hire another company to do it. I found that I didn't like the quality of workmanship from other agencies and so forth. So I ended up keeping that work. So you may want to do the same. But it can definitely be done, especially if you're more detached from the process. But I personally like going from the angle of, if you're gonna get a client, plan to try and keep them forever, or as long as possible, right? And try and have that be a harmonious relationship. And in my experience, that part of it is really, really hard to do. You can definitely, like, outsource the work and get reports, but it's probably not my favorite way. Um, Thomas, anyone have a proven campaign that's crushing it for public adjusters? Um, I didn't see any answers on this one, Thomas. I don't necessarily know that much about public adjusters, so I can't tell you just off the top of my head which offer would crush it. Um, but I don't think you're necessarily looking for a campaign. Campaign to me implies funnels and all these things. If you really just get an offer in place, there are far more ways to generate client results than to use a campaign. For example, um, I've often found like the first thing I like to do with a new agency is give them little business cards that they can use to generate referrals before I run a single paid ad for them, because um, they think what they need is more ads and more new people, and you almost have to challenge clients on this because it's not really true. Um, Getting new clients just will show you all the holes in their bucket. It'll show you all the broken retention and all the broken keeping people. Um, so before you go out and get a campaign, figure out what it is they're really after in a campaign and see if there might be an easier way to do that. So like for us, I would send an email campaign or a referral campaign to their past clients before I would start building ads and funnels and those things. And I'm not saying not to do those things, but don't go after the hardest money first, both for your sake and for your client's sake. Claudio, I want to drive cheap traffic to my arbitrage website. Um, well, one of the simplest ways, what are they called? There's a whole bunch of websites where they let you show pop-up ads. I don't know, I forget. I used to run these in affiliate traffic a lot. I'm blanking on the name of them. But to be honest, I will tell you, Claudio, sorry. Um, in my experience, going after cheap traffic is a losing proposition in the long term. And I'll tell you why, because every platform is built the same. So Facebook and Google and all of them, Instagram, they're all set up as like auction based, which means at first the price starts really cheap and then some advertisers figure it out. And then there's a little bit more competition, a little bit more. I have friends, for example, that for years crushed it in Google AdWords because they were getting targeted clicks for 5 cents a piece. Right? Like there was nobody else competing on these keywords. And so they could sell a $47 ebook all day long because they could generate 200 clicks, have poor conversion numbers, and it would still work. But it wasn't really sustainable because as soon as the Google price went up, they weren't able to keep selling a $47 ebook. So my suggestion to you is if you actually want to be in this business for longer than a year and not have to like start over in 12 months, don't be focused on cheap traffic. Focus on like how you can convert people and add value to that process, and think about like how you can be a valuable resource. And then what you'll find is you can spend more on the traffic to get people. So like to give you like simple numbers, let's say you get 50 visitors and you make $50, and I get 50 visitors and I make $500, right? Well, for every 50 visitors, you make $1. For every 50 visitors, I make $10. Or for every one visitor, I make $10. And for every one visitor, you make $1. That's what I meant to say, sorry. The minute I spend $1.01 to get my people, you can't compete with me. And that always happens long term. So you want to be like the one who can pay more by adding the value. If you think more about that process, you'll be better off in the long term. Spencer, what do you use for project management? I kind of hate it, actually. I hate project management software. It's like a necessary evil. We use Asana, although I've heard good things about Trello, and what's the name of the other one? Slack. So I can't tell you from firsthand experience how the other ones do, but if you're at the space where you need a team and you need to get everybody on the same page, it's definitely worth it. It's kind of like, I hate learning new software personally. It's just more details. But yeah, those are. Sarah, we have a casual sports clothing e-commerce website blog, products in stock, no ad budget, what to use instead of Google and Facebook. Sarah, that's a good question because people get locked into the idea that you have to use Google and Facebook. I would suggest before you launch any offer ever with paid advertisements, unless you're at the level where you're doing a whole bunch of scale, but when you're beginning, is always begin with organic, connecting with your customers where they are. So you can do that in Facebook groups, you can do that in discussion forums, but who are the people that would actually buy your casual sports clothing? Like if you're selling yoga pants, then go to the yoga groups and get some feedback on your yoga pants, because one of the big mistakes is when you get locked into the idea that you have paid ads, you have to do paid ads and you have no budget, then it can feel very like stuck. And the funny thing about paid ads is it just adds fuel and speed to what you're doing. So if you're not selling through organic, you're not going to sell through paid ads either. Chelsea, insight on successful ways to target doctors and health and fitness professionals. Um, I'll tell you my favorite way to do this, and this is not an easy, low cost one, but it is to go to conferences where they go to. If you like really, really want to be in this business for the long term, getting to know the doctors on a first name basis where you can shake their hands and there's only doctors in the room is like really, really powerful. And if you can't afford to pay to get in, you can always pitch them on the idea of speaking. Like everything is an offer. So one of the things I've learned is they usually congregate in different associations. Um, so I used to work a lot with plastic surgeons, go to a lot of plastic surgery conferences. And if you can get paid to speak at those things, firstly, you get paid to do it, you'll always leave with clients. Always, always, always. So that's my favorite way to do that. You can also, one of the big challenges is doctors have a lot of methods for gatekeepers. So one of the things that I've done is send them personalized letters through the mail. I know it's pretty old school, but it works. You mail their office and address it confidential directly to the doctor. The doctor's going to read it. And it's the same strategy that we've been mentioning here. I'll just say like, hey, Dr. So-and-so, I noticed an issue with your website, such and such. I made you a little video. Go here and watch it. And you'll notice the doctors do actually watch the videos. So those are a couple of my favorite ones. Of course, you can target them on Facebook and as well on Google. But I find the real life methods work better for doctors because that clientele and healthcare professionals and so forth, they're not as internet savvy. They don't have as much time. Like they have email and Facebook, but they don't spend like 40 hours a day like marketers cruising on, or 40 hours a week cruising Facebook. So always go where your clients are. Visar, can anyone help me get leads to chiropractors? Yes, you want to talk to the man himself, Dr. Stephen Yen, who's in this group. Stephen is a chiropractor himself who had to market to get his own patients and then realized he liked the marketing more than the business. I know he still sees a few patients, but he's more of a marketer now, so he understands you on that level more. He'll have only a gazillion good ideas for you, so connect with him. Tom asks, how do you pay your VA, hourly or commission based? I recommend that if you're going to hire a VA, do it either on a part-time or a full-time basis, especially full-time if you can, and don't pay them either hourly, pay them salary, because in my experience, if you're paying them hourly, and this is if they know they can't depend on you for a full-time job, then they always have their eyes open for something else. And so then you're never going to get 100% of their full effort and attention. And there's a lot of pitfalls in hiring VAs, but I think one of the biggest ones, if you just hire somebody on hourly, you're going to run into more problems than if you have like a full-time employee. And if you're not at that level, yes, you can hire them commission-based, but in my experience, most of them will disappear on you. So be prepared to like hire a lot of them. Tom asks, how are PPC ads doing in dental? Any effect due to COVID? I don't necessarily have my pulse very strong on this niche, but who isn't affected by COVID right now? Again, though, like I would go back to the earlier advice, which says focus on being the one. Like I gave the example to the one person. If you're getting $1 per visitor and I'm getting 10, then I can pay $1.01 for my visitors and you can't, so I can kind of put you out of business. So you want to be the dentist who can pay more, who's selling more high value things and make your offers convert better. And what you'll find is you don't have to worry as much about the PPC costs going up and down from month to month, because if you're in a situation where a rising ad cost of 25% would put your ads on the negative side, then your offer and your retention is one of those two things is broken. Um, Will, my site got penalized by Google. How bad is it? Is it recoverable? Kind of depends on the damage. Well, honestly, in my experience, if you're not too attached to it and you're not super deep into it, just start over. If you're in a situation where you built it up for like 5 or 10 years and a couple of links are harming you, then you're going to have to do some work undoing those links. But it's a pretty tedious process. And that's why I always say, like, if you get the offer right, you don't necessarily depend on all those things from Google. Because I personally hated knowing that at any given time, Google can have an update and throw you out of business. That like didn't seem like a business model I wanted to be in. And I'm not telling you what to do, but to me, that's building a business on a foundation of sand. And if you still want to be in business in 5 years, then like work on some things that are not Google dependent. And then last question, Susan, what is the biggest money making keyword you have come across? I'll tell you my experience. I had two that jumped to mind. The first is it was in my own business. My first online business was a friend of mine sold real estate courses and we partnered together and I was the one who got the traffic and figured all the things out, which I knew nothing about when I started. And it was really interesting because we got to number one and we would bounce between number one and number two for real estate investing. And that keyword has like 100,000 visitors a month. And when I was number one, I'd get like 3,000 people a day, like brand new strangers coming to the website. And I didn't understand all the conversion stuff and offers like I do now. And I remember I made like one sale a month, two sales a month for a course that was like 47 bucks or 97. We had a couple of them. And I remember I ranked for a keyword called short sale course. And I realized years later, it was like only 100 people a month searched it. But we probably converted like 15% of the traffic into sales for like a $97 product. And it tipped me off that like not all keywords were created equal. And the latter had buying intent as well. Second example, many years ago for plastic surgeons, we were the first ones to run a paid offer for breast augmentation. So they all basically said, hey, we do breast augmentation, call us, Dr. So-and-so. And we ran an ad that a lot of people have copied since, but we were the first ones to do it, that said $3,900 breast augmentation, no hidden fees, free consultation. And it cost us about $5 a click. And we got 1 in 2 of those clicks to actually fill out the form and say, I'm interested. And of those 2 people, one of those would become a paying patient. So they would come in the door for $20, like an actual face-to-face patient. Now, he didn't actually make any money off that $3,900 breast augmentation, but we added a little step. And this is why like being strategic is so important in this whole journey. Is all he said is when people came in, would you also be interested in our mommy makeover package? And that package, I think, was like $25,000. And I think only about 40% of people took it. But he made a lot on that $25,000 package, and that's how he made all his money. So bringing in people for the $20 sounds cool, but not if you don't make any money. But if you have a second offer that leads into the first, and you have a deeper strategy, you will be kicking ass. So Susan, I would say the same thing is like, think about the people. Like, I'm not saying don't go after keywords. In my experience, it can make a big difference, but think about getting your offer right, and you can go a lot of different ways with a good offer. Like we could have run that $3,900 breast augmentation in billboards and magazines, on TV. Like we could have gone a lot of ways with it. The only reason we didn't is like literally we overwhelmed the doctor in a week. He like had too many patients, and it was really interesting because I remember he worked at a clinic where there were lots of other plastic surgeons that each rented their own little office. And they were like, how's the new guy getting all the business? And then they actually talked him out of running the ad, I remember, because he was like, they're like, oh, you cheapen our industry if you run ads like that. And he turned it off. And then a month later, he was like, please turn it back on. I need the business, right? So that's the power of a good offer like that, is it can literally turn on like a wave of unending patients or clients or customers. And it can also like turn it off if you turn it off. So get that piece right. And again, I'll just mention, and so that's all the questions we got for today. Check out the book if you haven't. I'll be sending out all the free copies, as many as Facebook will let me. And I'll make sure that all of you guys who requested that get that in the next day, 2, 3 tops. It's really an amazing read, so like read it as soon as possible. Because I wrote it because many of you have probably experienced the same thing as when you work at an agency. you start off, you have no clients, no money, but a whole lot of free time, and then you get a bunch of clients, and all of a sudden you're busy. You got phone calls to make and meetings, and in my case, backlinks to build or however you deliver it. And then what ends up happening is you have no time to have a life, and you have to check your phone all the time and your email to listen to your clients. And it took me about 10 years to figure this out, but I'm like, there has to be a better way where you can actually like, make money and have a life. And so the book is really about how to do those two things at the same time. And so you really dig it. And then um, check out the offer as well, because um, if you guys are ready to get assets and to like really, really move the needle and get out of being like dependent on one way of getting people and being able to get your clients results, like you should be able to get your clients results in 48 hours. And if you can't do that, then you need to check out this offer, because it'll change your life. And there's a pretty, I haven't talked about it, but there's a pretty amazing results guarantee as well that I'll mention. So happy to just take one payment as a deposit. If you don't have the money right now, I can be super flexible and then help you get that result. And then you pay with the profits you generate. So it doesn't even have to come out of your own pocket. So I like to make that as no-brainer as possible, because, it's all about that offer. So check that out. It's in the pinned post in the group, the announcement. Otherwise, that's all I got for the weekly Q&A. Thank you guys for listening to me ramble. And that's it. We're going to end the live. I got to click the button here.